They say the devil is the father of lies, the prince of pride, and the architect of our destruction. But what if I told you that beneath the floorboards of hell, in the deepest and coldest recesses of the abyss, there sits an entity so vile and so fundamentally hollow that even the other fallen angels despise him? While Lucifer fell because of a tragic excess of ambition and a desire to be God, there is another who fell simply because he refused to rise. A being whose very name translates to worthlessness and lawlessness. An ancient void that seeks to drag humanity not into fire, but into a suffocating gray apathy. He is the master of the unyoked, the patron saint of the wicked, and some ancient texts suggest he was carved from the darkness before Satan ever opened his eyes. Before you think you know the hierarchy of the underworld, you must understand that there is a creature who does not want to rule you. He wants to make you empty, and his name is Belial. But to understand the true horror of this entity, we cannot simply look at a list of demons. We must look at the trail of ruin he has left across human history. Because Belial is not just a monster. He is a contagion. In the earliest whispers of the Old Testament, Belial does not appear as a creature with wings and horns, but rather as a spiritual disease, a condition of the soul that rots a man from the inside out. When the ancient scriptures speak of the children of Belial, they are not describing a cult. They are describing a terrified diagnosis of human beings who have lost their utility and their morality. Imagine a city in the Bronze Age where the social contract has completely dissolved, where men stand in the shadows of the city gates with eyes void of empathy, waiting to devour the innocent. This is the atmosphere painted in the book of Judges during the atrocity of Goetia, a moment where the spirit of Belial descended upon a town like a thick fog. A traveler, a Levite, sought sanctuary in an old man's home, only to have the house surrounded by the sons of Belial, howling for flesh like a pack of starving wolves.
We can't touch her.
They demanded to violate the traveler, and ultimately took his concubine, abusing her in the dark until her life flickered out, leaving her broken body on the doorstep as a testament to what happens when Belial enters the heart. This was not simple crime. This was the manifestation of absolute lawlessness, a complete inversion of order, where humanity strips away its own divinity to become something less than animal. As the centuries ground forward, the identity of this dark force began to coalesce, solidifying from a mere concept of wickedness into a terrifying, conscious entity. By the time the ink was drying on the Dead Sea Scrolls buried in the caves of Qumran, Belial had ascended to the throne of the Angel of Darkness. These ancient and crumbling manuscripts describe a cosmic war that is invisible to the naked eye, a battle between the Angel of Light and Belial, the King of Evil. Here he is not a servant of Lucifer, but a warlord with his own dominion, commanding a legion of spirits known as the Angels of Destruction. The scrolls warn us of his strategy, revealing that he does not attack us with swords or fire, but with 3 specific nets designed to entrap the human soul. 3 nets that are terrifyingly relevant even thousands of years later. Fornication, wealth, and the pollution of the sanctuary are his weapons, designed to distract us, to make us obsessed with the flesh and the coin, until we are too heavy to rise, too weighed down by our own desires to look up at the sky. He is the angel of enmity, the one who whispers that you are irredeemable and that God has no room in his heart for you because As the scrolls say, God shall not retain Belial within his heart. But the rabbit hole goes deeper, and the story grows darker as we uncover the lost, apocryphal texts that were cast aside by the mainstream church. In the Ascension of Isaiah, we are introduced to a terrifying prophecy where Belial is not merely a demon, but the ruler of this world, a title that suggests he is currently winning the war. The text reveals that Belial possesses the power to inhabit the bodies of kings, turning them into puppets for his sadistic amusement. It was Belial who possessed King Manasseh, twisting his mind until he executed the prophet Isaiah, not by beheading him, but by sawing him in half with a wood saw, a slow and agonizing death that delighted the dark spirit. This text peels back the skin of reality to show us that Belial's ultimate endgame is to manifest as the Antichrist, to walk among us in the likeness of a man. He will command the sun to rise at night and the moon to appear at noon, performing miracles that mimic the divine, deceiving the world into worshiping him as the one true God. His power is deception, but unlike the subtle serpent in the garden, Belial's deception is total, believing that he can rewrite the laws of the universe to make himself the center of existence. Yet perhaps the most chilling encounter with this entity is found in the dusty pages of the Book of the Resurrection of Jesus Christ by Bartholomew, a narrative that takes us on a harrowing descent into the underworld itself. The story goes that after the crucifixion, Christ descended into hell, not as a prisoner, but as a conqueror, tearing the iron gates from their hinges. The disciples and Bartholomew peer into the abyss and ask to see the enemy, and Jesus commands the archangel Michael to drag the fallen ones into the light. Out of the darkness comes Belial, stripped of his shadowy armor, bound and trembling. It is a moment of profound psychological horror as the disciple Bartholomew is told to step on the neck of this ancient evil. Under the weight of a righteous foot, the demon breaks and confesses his true origin. He reveals that his name was once Satan El, the messenger of God. But he rejected the image of the divine and became the keeper of hell. This admission changes everything, implying that Belial was once charged with carrying the word of the Creator, but chose instead to become the warden of the damned, suggesting that the line between the highest angel and the lowest demon is razor thin. Even in the more modern demonologies of the Renaissance, such as the works of John Milton and the occult studies of the Goetia, Belial retains a unique and disturbing persona. He is often described as the most beautiful of the fallen angels, full of grace and dignity on the surface, but hollow and false within. Milton paints him as the embodiment of sloth, of intelligent inactivity. While other demons scream for war and violence, Belial uses his silver tongue to argue for waiting, for doing nothing, for simply existing in the darkness, because he knows that inaction is the deadliest poison of all. He is the voice in your head that tells you to sleep when you should work, to stay silent when you should speak, to let the world burn because it is too much effort to save it. He rides a chariot of fire, yet he represents the cold, damp rot of a soul that has given up. He is the first to fall, some legends say even before Lucifer, because while Lucifer fell from passion, Belial fell from a lack of it. He is the original nihilist, the first being to look at the majesty of creation and decide that it simply wasn't worth the effort. So we are left with a terrifying realization that Belial is not just a monster from a fairy tale, but a mirror reflecting the darkest parts of the human condition. He is the embodiment of wasted potential, of the yokeless existence that refuses to pull the plow of life. He waits in the shadows of our apathy, spreading his 3 nets of distraction, waiting for us to decide that nothing matters. The ancient prophets believed that in the final days, the Messiah would come to do battle with Belial and drag him into the fires of Gehenna, ending his reign of worthlessness forever. But until that day comes, he remains the ruler of this world, hidden in the hearts of corrupt kings and in the silence of good men who do nothing. As you go about your life, ask yourself which voice you are listening to, the one that calls you to rise and build, or the one that whispers that it is easier to just lie down and let the darkness take you.
Don't stop. You need more. Just a little bit closer.
We are often told that the opposite of love is hate, and that the opposite of good is evil. But the story of Belial forces us to confront a much more uncomfortable truth. The opposite of holiness is not hatred, it is uselessness. Belial is not terrifying because he has horns or breathes fire. He is terrifying because he is the personification of wasted potential. He is the master of the yokeless, those who have no purpose, no direction, and no drive. In a modern world consumed by mindless scrolling, fast dopamine hits, and a culture that often celebrates mediocrity and detachment, Belial is more powerful today than he was in the deserts of ancient Judea. He does not need to possess you with spasms and foaming at the mouth. He only needs to make you indifferent. He only needs to make you feel that your life has no weight, that your actions have no consequence, and that it is better to be numb than to be alive. The greatest trick this entity ever played was convincing us that evil always looks like a monster, when in reality it often looks like comfort. It looks like the safety of not trying, the luxury of not caring, and the freedom of having no responsibilities. Belial tempts you not with power, but with the relief of giving up. He is the patron saint of tomorrow, the king of good enough, and the architect of the life unlived. Every time you turn away from a challenge, every time you silence your conscience to fit in, and every time you choose what is easy over what is right, you are tithing to the temple of Belial. He doesn't want your soul to burn. He wants it to wither.
We know what you've lost.
So I leave you with this choice, a binary fracture in the path of your own life. Will you accept the yoke of struggle, the burden of purpose, and the pain that comes with trying to ascend toward the light, even if it burns you? Or will you choose the yokeless path of Belial, the smooth and easy road into the gray fog of a life that leaves no mark on the world? The choice is not between heaven and hell. It is between existing and truly living. If you want to arm yourself against the void and understand the monsters that hide not just in the dark, but in the mirror, then you need to be here for what comes next.
Just a little bit closer.
Subscribe and join us as we dissect the next nightmare, because understanding the darkness is the only way to safeguard the light.